Okay, so welcome back to the channel. Welcome to essentially the first video in the Tamiya Corsair F4U build. So we're going to start at step one, essentially focusing on the cockpit. So quite a simple construction. What I plan to do in the T55 video, you obviously saw me removing parts from the sprue, cleaning those parts up, etc, etc. I'm not going to go over old ground, because if you want to see how that's done or how I do it, then you can obviously see in the T55 series. So what I'm going to do off camera is I'm going to remove all these parts from the sprue. I'm going to clean them all up. I'm going to prime them, and I'm going to get the base color on them, because all that stuff you've seen me do before. And then we're going to come back, we'll do some decaling around the instrument panel, and the seat belts and all that stuff, get that done. Once all that's done, we're then going to move on to weathering the cockpit, to try and get it a bit more sort of natural looking. So I'll be back in a bit. What I'm going to do is get all these removed, get them cleaned up, get them base painted, and then we'll come back and we'll have a look at decaling and how I'm going to do that and what products I'm going to be using. In the meantime, if you haven't already, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, hit the bell notification, and while you're waiting for me to come back, which to be fair is only going to be about 5 seconds for you, don't forget to go and visit umpretail.com, where you'll find lots of cool stuff to enhance your modelling experience for sure. So I'll be back in a second, and all this will be painted and ready for decaling. See you in a minute. Okay, so we have all the various cockpit bits painted. So they were primed in UMP black primer. The reason I haven't showed it in the video, back in the T55 video, you saw me applying primer and paint and all that stuff. It's just same old, same old. I've done nothing different with this. Let the primer dry, and then we've given it a few light coats of XF71, which is cockpit green. I appreciate that it's probably not the most accurate cockpit green, but it's what I have. I'm not going to go out and buy specific colours to do one aircraft, and it's close enough for me. So that's all done. What we did do is on the instrument panel and stuff, we just masked that off with Tamiya tape, and that is the UMP black primer showing through, and then we obviously sprayed the cockpit green. We did the same on this piece here with the side panels, and we'll also do the same on the interior of the fuselage. So what we need to do now is apply some decals, because as I said, we're not building this with loads of aftermarket and everything else. I'm building this as best I can completely out of the box to see what sort of result we can achieve without having to go out and spend lots of money on aftermarket and that sort of stuff. Obviously, you've got people like Quintus Studio, Red Fox, Edward. They'll all do interior cockpit sets for this particular kit, but we're not going down that route with this one. So we need to apply the instrument panel decal, obviously, to the instrument panel. This little square set of dials goes on this bit here, and then we need to apply the seat belts, and I'm hoping these are going to work. You can put the decal onto like masking paper or whatever to make them a little bit thicker, but to me decals are quite thick anyway, so we'll see if that works straight onto the seat. There's no weathering at all done on this currently. That will all be done once these decals are on. There's no clear coat. I'm going straight onto the paint. So the way we're going to do it is we're going to be using two products essentially. The first one being Microsol Industries Micro Set. That's what we're going to place the decal on top of. But then how we're going to make them work really is by using the Ultimate Modeling Products decal solutions. So they come in 3 strengths: normal, strong, and extra strong. I don't think for a second we're going to need the extra strong. I use these all the time, so I can kind of judge what strength I'm going to need. So we're going to be using the strong once the decals are on to make them bed down and around all the details, etc. What I would suggest is, if you're new to using these, because they're very potent, start off with normal, see how it is, and then move up the levels. But because I use them all the time, I'm going to go straight to the strong. Then what we're going to use is just some very basic Q-tips or cotton buds, and even more basic toothpick, tweezers, and a hobby knife or scalpel. That's a 10A blade in there. We're also going to use one of these, which is essentially, I've had this for years, it's a watercolor pen. I don't put anything in it, but it's perfect for decals, the way it works. So we'll be using that as well. And I'll be decanting the decal solutions into these. So these are available from UMP. They're actually sort of the bottle caps that you get in the cleaner and thinner, but you can buy sets of just these, and they're ideal for this sort of thing because they sit on your bench with your decal solution in, no issues. You can put the lid back on your decal solution without worrying you're going to knock it over and waste it all. So I just put a bit of white tack on the bottom, attach it to the cutting mat, and then just give this micro set a shake essentially, and just decant a little bit. You don't need loads. Decant a little bit into the cap, lid on. Now what we need to do is submerge these decals into some water. So just hold them with the tweezers, hold them in some sort of warm water for sort of 10 seconds ish, just to let it thoroughly soak. I don't leave it in the water because you risk the decal coming off the backing paper and floating around in the water. So get it nice and wet, nice and submerged, and then place it face down on our kitchen paper here. And then while that's doing that, we'll do the same with the square. So again, submerge 10 seconds or so, doesn't need to be ages, and get that on like so. Now these are Tamiya decals, so notoriously very thick, difficult to use, so we'll see how we get on. So we're going to use the micro set, and we're just going to make sure that we've got good coverage all over our instrument panel like so. You can hopefully see that now sort of glistening on the camera like that. Then now we're going to take this, so I've cut as close to, as I need to around this sort of decal itself and the carrier film, and what I'm going to do is just test it with my thumb and see if we've got any movement, which we have. As you can see, it's sliding off the backing paper there. So using our cocktail stick, just our tweezers, and then all I'm going to do is place that decal essentially where it needs to be, hold it in place with the cocktail stick, and remove the backing paper. Get that out of the way, and as we can see, we've kind of got this instrument panel decal roughly where it needs to be. It's not perfect yet. So then, using your cocktail stick, you can manipulate this decal, and your thumb, manipulate it into exactly the position that you want it to be in, like so. And because we've left the black underneath, around the edges and stuff, we don't have to worry too much, because if we're slightly off, then the black paint will kind of hide that mistake. Well, that's certainly the theory. So decaling for me is well, I wouldn't say it's difficult, but it's not something I do a lot of, or haven't done a lot of, because I predominantly build armor. So on armor, there's very few decals, unlike aircraft, cars, where there's a fair few of them. So we're just making sure we're in the position we want, because in the next stage we're going to try and bed that decal in now and get it properly adhered to the surface. So that's about where we want it now. Excuse my fingers, airbrushing. But yeah, that's about where we want it. So by now, this one should be ready to remove, and you can see sliding off the paper. So we do exactly the same thing. Get it off the paper, and then once we're on the surface of the model we need it to be, we're just gonna get it roughly where we need it to be. There we go. So they look awful at the moment. So then we're going to get a Q-tip, cotton bud, get it in some microsol. We don't want it massively wet at this stage. And we're just, from above, we're just going to press, because obviously we've got the dial detail. And we're just going to press this home, like so. And this is where hopefully we're going to see these decals start to really bed in and start to conform to the surface of the model, like so. And then with the dry end of the Q-tip, we're just going to do the same thing. Now we're going to leave that probably about 10 minutes to let it properly adhere to the surface of the model using the micro set. Then we're going to come back in with the strong UMP decal solution, put that over the top. Very similar process, which I'll show you, over the top of the decal, and that will hopefully then really start to soften it into all those raised surfaces and everything else. So I'll see you in about 10 minutes for me, in about 5 seconds for you. See you in a minute. Okay, so we've given it about 10 minutes. What I have done as well, as you can hopefully see there, is we've used the decal seat belts on the seat. We had a little breakage there, but that will be fine. We'll sort that out. But I think they look okay. For what we're going to actually see once this thing's together, I'm quite happy with those. Do they look as good as aftermarket seat belts? Absolutely not. But for what we're trying to achieve with an out-of-the-box build, they will do. So also the instrument panel is adhered now to the surface. So now what we need to do is switch to our strong decal solution by UMP. Give it a good shake, get it thoroughly mixed, and what we're going to do is use the same brush, and we're just going to coat the surface of the decal with the strong decal solution. So we take it and we just use the brush, and we don't brush it on as such, we kind of dab it on. That's what we're trying to do here. Making sure now that we're sort of pressing around all the contours of the surface, around all the edges, because this stuff is strong, clues in the title, but it is phenomenal. It works so well. So where we've got that little overlap of the decal there, we're just brushing it down now onto the surface, like so. Once we've done that, we'll take a clean Q-tip now. Again, a little bit of the decal solution on there, and we're just pressing. So place your part on a hard flat surface, and that will give you some purchase then, like so, all around the edges, pushing it home. If you need a little bit more solution, that's fine, but I mean, you don't need loads, that's for sure. Switch sides if you start to get a bit of the cotton coming away, like so. And hopefully what you will see, what you hopefully pick it up on camera, is we are now really starting to conform to the surface of the model. As quick as that. In a few seconds this stuff starts to work. Like so. So it's still wet, but hopefully you can make out that it is starting to conform to the surface of the model. What will happen, particularly on more flat surfaces when you use this stuff, is that you will see the decal on occasion start to kind of wrinkle. Don't panic. Don't try and do anything about it. Let the solution do its thing. And it will. And then you'll come back in, I don't know, a couple of hours, and you'll see that that wrinkling has kind of leveled. And what's actually happened is that that decal has conformed exactly how you want it to the surface of the model. So we're just losing that little bit there that's broken off when we place the decal. So just very, very carefully, using our tweezers, we're just going to place that back on to the surface of the model, he says. So as I said in the unboxing video, I'm going to make loads of mistakes in this, and you're going to see them. It's quite difficult to hide mistakes on camera. There we go. That will do. And then using a cocktail stick, I'm just going to push that home into place to give the impression of seatbelts. Unfortunately, the cocktail stick's not quite precise enough, so using the back end or the back side of the blade gives us a little bit more control, and we're having a nightmare here. So I'm going to bring that down just to the bench, just so I can see better. There we go. It's done what we need it to do. So we're going to just leave that now to kind of set and dry. Again, with the strong solution, just pressing it home and into place, avoiding that bit there, because we don't want to move that now. We want that to stay where it is and conform. So seatbelts are done. Instrument panel is done. As I say, I'm going to leave these for a couple of hours now, let the decal solution work its magic. I'm just going to go in with some white and red just on these dials and switches here, just to these ones here. That'd be easier when it's to point at than with my big sausage finger. So just around here where there's no decal, we'll just pick out some of these dials and switches and stuff, and we'll do exactly the same on this piece here, just with these dials, etc., and handles and stuff. Get all those detail painted with some white and red. And the way we do that is just with the end of a cocktail stick, really, and just dab a little bit of paint on, and that'll be fine. And then what we'll do, we'll get this assembled, get the cockpit assembled, and then we'll weather it to make it look more natural. That's the plan. So I'll see you shortly, and by which time all these decals should be settled, and we can start to put this together and weather the cockpit. See you in a bit. Okay, so it's been a couple of hours, and now we're going to assemble the cockpit as we see here. We've kind of ignored pretty much the color call outs on the instructions. We've kind of done our own thing to a point, but we can see how it goes together. So that's in step 1 of the instructions, fairly straightforward. What we can see here is that now the decal solutions have absolutely worked, and now we've got the decal, although it's not showing that well on camera, is absolutely, you can feel it with your thumb. It's conformed perfectly to the surface of the model in the right position. So very simply, all we need to do now is attach the seat, which just slots in like so. Push that home, and now we've got the paint on there. I don't think we're actually going to need any glue on that, to be honest. It's a pretty tight fit. So yeah, that's worked fine, no issues at all. Then we're going to get this side panel. As you can see, like I said I was going to do, I've just picked out some of the detail with some model color flat white, just to obviously bring that up. And obviously as we weather it, we'll knock that effect back a little bit. That again, it's almost like a Lego, this kit. So that just kind of slides in. We will put a bit of glue around the joint though, because it's not as stable as the seat, that's for sure. So there we go, we've got the seat and the side, etc. Attached. And now what it's telling us to do is move on to this section here, where we're putting the foot pedals into place. So we've got like this T-shaped area and this T-shaped hole here. And now as I'm looking at this, I can see that I appear to have forgotten a piece, which is E10, which is not good. So yeah, so I'm looking at the instructions, and if we look at this bit here, E10, I've totally forgot that piece. I've not noticed it. So we're gonna have to do that bit. So I'll do that off camera. It'll be done in exactly the same way, exactly the same colors. There's no decals or anything required on that. And then essentially all we do is mate these two halves of the cockpit together onto those locating points there, and we'll have our cockpit together. So I'm going to do that off camera, get it all glued, and then we'll come back and we'll weather it and get it looking a bit more natural. That's the plan. I'll do that off camera. See you in a minute. Okay, so weathering, cockpit, and all that good stuff. So here we have, let's move out of the way. Here we have the cockpit. So I've weathered this to sort of the level I want it. It's looking a lot more natural now, a lot more sort of blended. It's all together. We put the missing piece on, painted in exactly the same way. So the cockpit's all done. The weathering's gone over the decals as well. The UMP decal solutions worked its magic, and it's all looking lovely. So how did I achieve that? So obviously we've got to do the inside of the fuselage in the same way. So both where the rear, the tail wheel is, and also the actual interior of the cockpit. So you can see on this one, that's looking a lot darker than this one. So this is just painted in exactly the same way as the rest of the cockpit. Black UMP primer, and then Tamiya cockpit green over the top. And then we've just picked out this little handle here. So I'm going to show you how we achieve it. So the first thing we're going to use is Citadel Norn Oil, which is obviously one of their shade paints. So it's very translucent. There's no clear coat required. And we're just gonna, with quite a large brush, we're just going to paint this all over the cockpit green. Now we've got this kind of ribbon interior detail here, so what we want to try and do is go in the opposite direction to that, which will, as you can see, leave the Norn Oil sort of against the edge of the ribbon detail, and that's what we want to do. So you can be quite generous with it. You've got plenty of working time with this stuff. We have got an ejection pin mark here, but we're not going to worry about that because you're not going to see that. Once the actual cockpit's in the fuselage, we won't see it. So rather than risk damaging any of the other detail that's molded in, we're just going to leave that where it is. and we just go all over it with the Nuln Oil. It will darken the green, which is what we want. And it will also accentuate a lot of that detail that we can see. Now, if you've got a little bit too much in between that ribbon detail, just use the brush and just move it around a little bit, and it achieves that. And that's what we want. Just clean that with water. It's acrylic base, so there's no issue. So once it's dry, you will have this sort of effect that we've got on the rear. So you can see there where it's still wet, it's quite shiny. That takes about 20-25 minutes to dry, and then we'll end up with this. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to take Citadel Shabti Bone, and we're going to dry brush over the top of the green. So use a nice soft flathead brush. Don't use an expensive brush for this, because dry brushing will ruin your brush pretty much over time. So we just get rid of most of the paint off the brush, and as you can see on the actual cockpit itself, that's the kind of effect we're going for. It's sort of around the edges, give it this blended, dusty, worn look. So that's what we're going for. So very gently, we just go over the raised detail, and we just build it up. Less is more. We just build it up. You can always add more if you need it. You're not going to be able to take it off. So around the edges and all that good stuff. And it's as simple as that, really. Now, you can go to town with the cockpits, you chip in and all that stuff, but you can keep this aircraft fairly clean. It's not going to be massively beat up, I don't think. I don't think we're going for that sort of look. So this is more than adequate for what we need. And then what you'll see, hopefully, is how that's blended in. Like so. And as we build that sort of dusty worn effect up all over the raised detail, then what we will end up with is this. And that's exactly what we're looking for. And you can see the Nuln Oil has sort of settled in and around all the recessed areas to create some shade. Very similar to like a panel line wash, really. And this is just an easy way of doing it. And as I say, no clear coats on this at all, as it stands. And there we go. So I'm going to obviously wait for this section to dry. We'll do exactly the same all over it. And then on the other half of the fuselage, we've picked out the detail there. The Nuln Oil is in now and dry, so I'll go around and dry brush all over this. And then that's the sort of internals of the cockpit done. And then in the next video, we're going to move on to the engine, the cowling. We are building out the box, however, the engine is lacking sort of detail. So we're going to add some wiring detail to the engine. I'll show you. I'm going to try and mask the inside of the engine cowling here. So at the front, you can see where I've marked it there. At the front, from reference pictures, that's sort of an off-white colour with sort of primer, zinc oxide primer on the rest of it. So we're going to try and do that and get the cowling looking nice. What we'll probably do while the cowling is off the model is this front area here up until this panel line. Excuse my fingernails, very dirty painting. Where this panel line is here, this front ring, if you like, is yellow on the scheme we're doing. So we'll probably paint that off the aircraft, and then we can mask that once the yellow's all dry, and it will make it a lot easier. So we'll do that in the next video, as well as putting some detail on the engine. So that's it. We're getting there. We're pretty much there with the internal colors and stuff. So if you haven't already, please hit the like and subscribe. Subscribe to Black Rifle Model Worx and Ultimate Modeling Products YouTube channel. Go and visit umpretail.com. If you haven't already, come and join the Black Rifle Model Worx Facebook group. And until next time, stay safe, happy hobbying. Bye-bye.